I'm going to give you some advice that will not sit well with many of you, but promise me you'll think about it anyway. Hold people personally responsible. That's what Nuremberg did. Do not let officials hide behind their duty or the law. Force them to accept personal responsibility for their decisions. It is much easier to do this than you think. Probably the best way to get along in the short run is to be discreet and bow your head, to compromise, not to make waves. But anyone who gives you this advice has not learned the lesson of Munich, the lesson of the income tax, the lesson of the original 4 months a year government schooling. By appeasement, you proclaim your victim status. Tactically, you may escape in the short run by displaying the white feather, but in the long run, you will be stripped, strapped, and straddled. And that isn't John Gatto talking. It's the accumulated wisdom of the Americans who once understood that liberty is the American dream, not money. I want to quote one of those Americans who most of you will never have heard of, but who was one of the most powerful citizens of the 20th century. He deliberately worked behind the scenes. A man whose life impacted on every life on the planet and still does. The man I refer to is Edward Mandell House of Texas. How many of you ever heard of Edward House? Good. That's the way he would have wanted it. Who inner circle historians believe was the driving force behind America's entry in World War I, the writing of the League of Nations Treaty, one of the most important brokers of the Federal Reserve Act, and was the actual shadow president during the Woodrow Wilson years. Whatever you think of House, and I don't much like him, he mastered tremendous human power by understanding human nature. In his memoirs, House acknowledges he was a poor student at the bottom of his class. At a school in Virginia where he was sent in 1914 at the death of his mother, he witnessed a kind of hazing that made a lifelong impression on him. This is House speaking about the hazing he saw in a Virginia school at the age of 14. One form, I recall, was that of going through the pretense of hanging. They would tie a boy's hands behind him and string him up by the neck over a limb until he grew purple in the face. Now, House had no mother, his father was far away in Texas, and the school was indifferent to his private fears, as in my long experience it always is. Yet as House wrote in his memoirs, what was done to those who permitted it is almost beyond belief. But he had pride, and he had courage, and he said to himself, I made up my mind at the second attempt to haze me that I would not permit it. I knew there were no limits to the lengths they would go in hazing those who would allow it. It's so vital. Underline that. So I acquired a pistol and a large knife, and with these I held the larger, rougher boys at bay. And the result, they never bothered House again because they knew he had teeth with which to bite back. Don't tread on me, he signaled. I will not permit it. When kids came crying to me because their money had been strong-armed out of them on the playground and asked me to help, I always replied that if they insisted, I would hunt the thieves down and get the money back. Then they will wait for you after school and beat you up for ratting on them, I continued. But let's go if that's what you want. On the other hand, if you choose, you can protect yourself permanently by fighting back as hard as you know how, by going berserk and smashing, striking, biting without regard to your own safety. And when they knock you down, get back up and strike again. No matter how many times they knock you down, get back up and fight. They may win that one time, but I guarantee you the next time they want $1, they'll pick on someone who's an easier mark. And you will have learned something priceless, that the hurt from getting beaten only lasts a little while, but the hurt from quitting without a fight never goes away. Remember, what is done to those who permit it is almost beyond belief.